Greetings, dear ones. I'm Cryon of Magnetic Service. As humanity starts to turn a corner away from an old energy into a new energy, it sounds like a trite colloquialism. The old to the new, but this is profound. For the old energy represents staples of consciousness and the ways of being, which are going to be eliminated with a new, more advanced and elegant, evolved consciousness that is coming. And we wish to tell you yet again what to expect. And it centers around one word. There is a time that my partner and his partner will never forget. Not too long ago, in the place that you call India, they had an audience with a man. And the man is known as the Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama is respected, renowned, loved by hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of human beings who have heard him and seen him, been with him. And he goes over that bridge of what you would call organized religion. For the Christians and the Jews would all sit in his presence. The Muslims would understand when they could see the oneness of God represented in the man. And when he would speak in these groups, there would be a suspension for a little while of any separatism. And the light shone out of him. And there my partner was, about to meet him. He'll never forget it. It's etched into his Akash, which will go through the veil. And he'll remember a time, even in another lifetime, where he met a holy man who was correct and true. The first thing the Dalai Lama did was to grab the hand of my partner and his partner. They were holding hands. It's all my partner could do to suppress weep. Could this really be happening? And in his own cheerful, joyful way, the Dalai Lama mentioned some things, asked some questions. Where are you from? What's going on? And he looked in the eyes of my partner and his partner and made a statement. It's simple, but profound. It's something that he said that anyone who knew him would expect him to say, but my partner got to hear his voice say it to him. And he said, I believe in oneness. Profound it is because this changing consciousness on the planet is changing from separatism to oneness. And it's doing it in subtle ways and not so subtle ways. But you can see it operate so clearly because of what is coming. You can see it operate because separatism is starting to look ugly. And yet that was always the way of it. I want to walk you through predictions, situations, instructions, some of which may surprise you. All given in love and from a source that has seen this before and knows what's coming that is potentially beautiful. Not all at once, dear ones, and we've said this before, but let me plant the seed of what I see. Only a few years past 2012, and already you're experiencing the old staleness of separatism. And it's not feeling good or looking good. Let me tell you where this might go. Because you're going to see the actual coming out from separatism to oneness in the oddest places. I think the most remarkable one that you're going to see, and when you do it, you remember this channel, is in commercialism, in business. Imagine for a moment, I'm going to give you something that is laughable today and could happen tomorrow. Imagine for a moment two soft drink companies who I'll name, Pepsi and Coca-Cola, coming together in one giant pavilion in a conference and inviting everyone to come in and taste their soft drink and enjoy it, because they know that between the two brands there will be some who want one and some who want the other. But by combining the two into one place, they'll sell more soft drinks. It's not separate anymore, is it? What was the old system? I'll call it competitive war. That's what the old system was, completely and totally separate, completely. And one would say, we have the best, don't do the other. Here's the blindfold test. You're going to like ours better. And the other one will then say the same, and they'll change the brand, and they'll change the taste, and do this and that, all so that they will be ahead of the other one. And suddenly, somewhere, someone is going to have an odd idea, and the boardrooms are going to guffaw and laugh and roll their eyes for a moment. What if we came together knowing very, very succinctly that there is a taste for both on this planet? And that when we come together, we're going to show a oneness that says, we're not going to tell you anything. We have just got some great drinks here. Why don't you come and enjoy them? And for those who have never tasted the one and just tasted the other, there will be some who will make a change and some who won't. And it won't matter. Because in the end, they will have achieved even more than any kind of a commercial war that they would ever have. The end of separatism and the admonishment to others that perhaps the old ways aren't working as well. That some new paradigms coming together would work far, far better. Will you ever see that? And the answer is yes, sooner than you think. The appearance of oneness in any form and the lack of separation is what I'm asking you to look for. Dear ones, those who separate will eventually go into their own corners. Separation creates war. Separation creates mistrust in any form at all. It means there's them and there's you. A oneness brings together 2, 3, 4 sides, it doesn't matter, into a coalition, a way of confluence that creates things you didn't expect. I want to talk to Americans in the room. I want you to go back with me and pretend. I want you to pretend you were there at the signing of the Declaration of Independence. I want you to pretend that you could see the faces of the founding fathers who started the democracy you have today. I want you to listen to them when they say this is the start of something different. And they're right. Majority rule, minority rights, a chance for everyone Dissension is okay. Anyone can be successful. What an idea. But they were smart. And even in the creation of your country's constitution, they understood there would be change. There would be amendments. And they understood there would be dissension and party differences, and they would not stop. There would be no coalition of oneness there. They understood the separation was important. But they built the Constitution so that when the two sides would come together, they would make laws that were better. Better because the two sides had come and compromised and negotiated and built laws that would remain to this day in their wisdom and strength, because the two sides had put them together. That was then, and that's not happening today. Today it has become separatism. And the idea of oneness is not there, dear ones. It is simply gone. And the founding fathers, if they could see what's happening right now, right today, would weep. And they would say, it's not the way we designed it. It just isn't the way we designed it. We didn't design it to have elections where winner would take all and battle the opposition until the next election, and winner would take all and battle the opposition, and nothing would get accomplished. That's today. Ultimate separatism. Once again, I tell you that what seems to be broken can be repaired by oneness. There will come leadership that understands this. There will be those who would run for the highest office of the land, who will obfuscate what they actually believe on purpose and tell people, I'm a centrist. I believe a lot of the red that is good and the blue that is good, and I'm going to put them together. You elect me for negotiation, not for the party, and not for the color, and not for anything except the ability to come and put this together so that the laws are done and they're strong because of it. And dear ones, when that happens, I want you to remember this channel. Someone is coming. This will be obvious to so many. It is what is needed in order to return to the basic idea that two sides, even three or four, can come together and negotiate for strength, for common sense, without name-calling and without battles. A oneness even with cultural differences. The idea of separate is going to go by the wayside. And when it does, you'll breathe a sigh of relief. And you'll say, no more of this. Soon, it'll occur to those who will run for the highest office in the land. It'll occur to them so plainly that they must be one who can negotiate, bring together, and never separate again. That's just two areas. There are so many more. But the one I want to talk about, I'll talk about in a way I've never talked about before. On this planet, there are many cultures, and those cultures bring about differences when it comes to spiritual things. Do I have to tell you that even a planet that believes in one God, the beautiful love of one God, is responsible for more wars than anything else? Arguing over one God. That is separatism. And the separatism has been there for a long time. The separate that says, my prophet has the truth, yours does not. And this is the staple of the consciousness of the organizations to this day. All of them, to this day, for the exception of two, the oldest ones on the planet, who actually are the ones without a prophet. Interesting, isn't it? But I don't want to talk about those. I want to tell you this, that the end of separatism will happen there as well. And you're going to start seeing it. You're going to start seeing it in gentle ways, where the prophet's words and actions and love supersede doctrine. I want to do something I've never done before, and then I want to give you an example, a vision. I want to talk to Christians. Now, I would like to tell you that I'm very aware that most Christians will not be interested in listening. In fact, they will not be listening at all. Because most Christians that are invested in the beautiful Savior that they have are told that only those who believe as they believe are to be listened to. And therefore, these words will not be heard. Not now, but they will be heard. Because there are many who will be alone. And you know who you are, Christian, listening to this right now. Because of what I'm going to give you will enhance everything you believe and more. I want to tell you about the man that you worship. It's bigger than you think. It's bigger than you were told, even. This man who walked the earth, who had so much happening. I'm going to give you stories tonight that you don't even know that are not in Scripture. It'll make you weep with joy. This man knew God. Not much was told in your Scripture about his background. It seemed like he simply appeared and did his thing. Oh, he studied. In order to get to that place where he was who you worship, there were years where he went through the opposition to what he believed. Remember, he was a Jew. And what he started preaching and what he started looking at, even as a young man, even in training, went so against the grain of everything that was there. They even called him the wicked priest. Wicked because he was against the truth of the land, what the Hebrews knew. But by the time he was Jesus, as you know him, that's what I want to talk about. Here is a man who was ascended in his consciousness, in his DNA, so much higher above anyone else who had ever walked the planet at that moment. The man who could walk on water was the man who could walk on water, because he had control over physics. He had control over health, over so many things. There are miracles you never knew he could do. Let me ask you. You were told that he had the multitudes that would listen to him, and you could hear a pin drop. How could the multitudes hear one man on a rock? How could 1,000 people without amplification hear one man on a rock? I'll tell you, they all did, as though he was in their face, talking in their ear with the most gentle, loving voice you can ever imagine. That was Jesus. Did you ever think of that miracle? And then if he talked too long, he fed them with food that wasn't there. That's the Jesus. Did you ever talk about what happened when he went home? No. You just got to hear about the feasts and the meetings and all that. You think they let him alone? They slept around where he lived. They followed him everywhere he went, because what he had exuded love and compassion and oneness. Exuded it. All you wanted to do was follow him. You could feel it. That's the energy I talked about this morning. That's the energy that has no name yet, that says, I don't know what it is, I want it. And I'll follow you for it. Because it's the love of God. All right, Christian, I want you to listen to this. Did you hear about the Roman centurion? No. Well, I'll tell you. There are so many things you don't know about that enhance this man's beauty, even above that which you read in your scripture from the apostles. The Romans watched Jesus carefully to see if he would say anything that would be against the emperor or Caesar or the politics. And he didn't. Because then they could put him in jail instantly, and he didn't. He talked about love. He said, listen, this is the way of it. It's through me that you're hearing this. Listen, this is the way of it. This is the truth of it. And he talked about the beauty of compassion of God, not about politics. And the centurion listened. But one time, just the one time, that Jesus turned and looked him in the eye, knew he was there. And there was a silence, and the centurion looked at him in the eye, and it was all over. One glance from the master, one smile from the master, and it melted the centurion's heart. Melted it. He left his post, he went home, took off his helmet and his armor, and he took his family and he left. He knew he had to get out of town because that was abandoning his post, but he knew he was wrong in what he had done. He had met Jesus. He had met the Master with one glance. That's who that was. You got a good guy here if you decided to worship, Christian. Let me tell you another thing about Jesus. He looked over the multitudes, and in his wisdom, he knew who the liars were. He knew who the thieves were. He saw the prostitutes and even those who'd killed other people. And he never said a word. Because he was not separatist. He was oneness. The love of God sees them all equally, and he said so. Dear Christian, you have a personal relationship where he can walk with you and talk to you and tell you that you're family. The man was about oneness. There was no judgment. Never. Beautiful. Even above what you think. Can you imagine being there? So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to give every Christian listening instructions. This nation predominantly is Christian that I speak in right now, so that's who I'm talking to. And if you will take it from me, I'm going to give you some instructions. You're told by your leadership you should be evangelistic. Good. I'll give you instructions on how it works. I want you to emulate the man you worship. If he could look you in the eye right now and you could be there in any of the assemblies and he could see you right now, he would look at you and say, go and emulate what you see. Go and emulate what you see. If you want followers, I want you to emulate that which is the Christ. When you look upon those around you, I want you to see the oneness that he saw. There weren't categories of those who believed and disbelieved or were doing it right or wrong. There was only love. There was only the compassion that God can give to a man like that who knew God. If you want followers, you will have the compassion of Christ everywhere you walk. And eventually, because of this and the oneness that you will give, the people will come to you and say, I don't know what you got, but I love it. And that's when you can say, look, why don't you come and have a worship service with me? This is the way you do it. If you want to be fishers of men, this is how you fish. You do it with compassion. And you do it with love. And may I tell you this, you don't do it with separatism. You don't do it by pointing at the others and saying, you got it wrong. Not only that, you're going to die in hell if you don't do it right. You don't make lists that are fearful and push people away. I'll tell you, Christian, that builds a wall. And that's not what your guy did. He never built a wall. Ever. Right to his last breath. Never built a wall. Looked upon his executioners just like he would look upon his mother. Compassion, love, and that's what's attractive. Now, did that hurt so much? Doesn't it make sense that you would emulate the Christ and that is where it's at? I've got a vision to give you, and the vision will be the end of the channel. It's a metaphor. It's about pillars that are holding up an enormous amount of weight, a roof, a ceiling. There's 5 or 6, maybe 7 of them. And they have to agree and be in oneness because each one shares the load. And I'm going to identify what that load is on top that they're supporting in a minute. None of those pillars can be separatists because they cannot remove themselves from this paradigm, this image, because then the whole structure would fall. You have a pillar, which is the Buddhists, the Hindus, the Jews, the Muslims, the Christians. Cultures of this planet will always have differences. They'll always have their prophets. That's not going away. But what's different is this, is that there'll come a time when all of the pillars agree about the oneness. They'll not make the other pillar separate. They will include all of them in compassion. They'll keep their prophet. They'll believe what they believe, and they will be happy they believe it, but they'll not turn to the other one and say, you're wrong. They'll not turn to the other one and say, and because you're wrong, we must kill you. That is separatism. That is going away. What is that weight they're holding? I'll give it a name. Because this is the key. The weight they're holding, all of the pillars in oneness together, called peace on earth. It is needed. This is the key. Lack of separatism, especially when it comes to organized religion. Turn to your prophets and the source and relearn what it is you're doing, dear ones. Instead of turning to the rules made by men so long ago to keep you separate. Instead, think of the oneness of the Master and the fact that he never separated out a group. And then think of what you're doing today. There is so much love for all of you to go around. And just like the Pepsi and just like the Coca-Cola, there will be those attracted to your pillar and to the other pillar. And the billions of people on this earth will live in a peaceful coalition of understanding and oneness, disagreeing perhaps of who might have the best, but including it all. Separateness is starting to fail. You will see it. I mean to offend no one today. I come to you in love and benevolence in an angelic way to say things are getting better. Listen. Just listen. You might learn something. We have said this before, and I'll reiterate it, for some don't understand what I'm talking about. New consciousness creates compassion. A kind of compassion that has only been relegated to a few on the planet. And instead, it starts to be spread over the masses. This is a compassion for all around you. A compassion for everything you see with your eyes or hear with your ears. That you get a different kind of message. And you change the reaction that you used to have in the past. We've spoken of these things so many times in many ways. But what we really haven't identified clearly is this. If you have something new in consciousness, is there something else you can expect? My partner spends a lot of time, and has in the past, proving to you scientifically that what the earth now understands and realizes, that consciousness is energy. Whether it's the experiments at what you call Princeton, or that which has been done by what you call HeartMath, now scientists are starting to agree that consciousness has certain kinds of parameters because it affects physics. And if consciousness affects physics, therefore it must be considered energy on the playing field of physics on this planet. So what happens if you change consciousness? And the answer is the development of new energy. It's unexpected. And that development of what it is going to be more contagious in a good way, in a benevolent way, in a positive way than you ever expected. There are those who would listen to this message and say, this is a Pollyanna channel, this guy. Everything is going to be okay. Things are going to happen. Isn't it wonderful? And they'll say, well, yeah, there's 7 billion of us. How long is that going to take when only a few are involved? Well, they don't know about the new energy that is going to be created through new consciousness. That new consciousness is going to create an energy that people will see and appreciate and love and want to be part of. It's going to change everything. Business, politics, science. And it's going to push it in an exponential way because it does that. Based in love. It does that. You don't have to wait in an old paradigm the way you have now, and when people wake up to certain things and generations go by before there's a big aha. Oh yeah, let's change things. That's not what's going to happen. Change is in the air, and compassion is the driver. And it's going to create a new energy, something you haven't seen before, which will be given a name eventually, that is going to spread a compassionate push. It's going to make people back up and reanalyze, for instance, what they say and what they do. A new feeling of belonging to something that is beautiful. A new purpose. When you see a light you never saw before, you reevaluate the darkness. This is the new energy that I speak of. This is the undiscovered country. And so this new country, this new consciousness, you tread lightly in because you really don't know how it works. But eventually you'll find out. It is beautiful and it is new. And eventually you will also realize that history will not repeat itself because of what you're doing now. And things that change around you will be remarkable that you never expected. And they will push the envelope of what you ever thought could be in this, a culture you thought you knew well. This is the future. As fast or slow as the ones in this room desire. But it is here. The snowball is rolling. What if you could get in touch with your soul? What if it were possible just for a moment? In your imagination, why don't you do it with me? That through some miracle of the moment, just for an instant, that you would wipe away all of the things that are between the vibrations of you as a human being and your soul. The interesting part of this is that you are looking at you. Your soul, dear ones, has been with you life after life after life. It's you. If you wanted to say, what is the core you? It is your soul, not your mind. Not even your Akash, it's your soul. The soul becomes that which many have called the higher self. That soul is the window to the rest of the story. And let us just say for a moment that you can contact it and be with it and fall into yourself in a way you'd never have before. And I want to tell you this. If you want to do this with me right now, I will tell you something. It's like the light turns on. Whatever you think is light goes away because that light is so bright. It's almost hard to exist in that light. And in that light there is love and there is truth and there is revelation. And the first thing you see is an alliance. The soul is not separate. The soul is part of a soul group, and that soul group is called God. It redefines everything you've been told about a central God that in a location has a consciousness that is separate from yours, and you realize it isn't. Here you are for just a moment, glimpsing into that box, which is your soul, just for a moment, and realizing not only is there light, that's you. Your name is there, and there's music playing, music that you recognize. It's the music of light, and you realize that you are part of the system of God. That's who you are. And at the same time, you realize something else, that all you've been told which would degrade you is false. It comes from humanity looking through that dark glass, seeing God dimly, not understanding at all what the evolution of consciousness is now showing you. You are magnificent. If that's all you get from that small glimpse of your soul, that's enough. Because as you come back to the biology of your body right now, and you sit there, I want a smile on your face. Perhaps all of the darkness that you've been told around you is part of you will now shatter and disintegrate and go away, and you'll get the chills of the aha you just had. Your soul, who you are as you walk around this planet, is closer to God than you ever thought. In fact, it is part of the creative source, and it is love. Everything you are and endeavor while you're here on this planet, you can do alone. And what I mean by that is you don't need the trappings of those around you who will say, do this, do that, climb these stairs, climb those, go to these levels, go to that level, because you are your own soul, and you can go anytime you want and visit the magnificence of who you are. If you go one step further, the beauty of this is the elegance of what happens when you start combining with others who are doing the same thing. And enough of you do it. If enough of you do it, pretty soon, you have peace on earth. And that is the truest thing I have ever told you. Who you are, more than magnificent, is the future of the planet. I want you to go from this place remembering those words. Perhaps in a quiet time, you might repeat this just for a moment, saying to Spirit, let me have a glimpse, just a glimpse, of what that higher self is, that being of gold that is me, with one foot on this side of the veil and one foot on the other. It begs to take your hand and say, come with me. I got something to show you. Rest in the arms of God and know who you are. "30 years ago, I came to my partner in a very cryptic way. To him it was frightening, but he got over it. There are those who would ask the man, the engineer, what was the turning point? When you had all of the logic that said this could not be. You had all of the fear from those around you who had said, be careful, it's evil. And yet you went anyway. What was the transition? What convinced you? I'll tell you this, I knew the man well enough to know what would win him over. He wasn't ready for it. No amount of logic can ever surpass love. It cannot. And when he sat in the chair over and over, he had the most amazing love wash he had never had before, ever. In his younger days, indeed, he went to organized religion, and he found love there. He found love there, kept him there. But he never experienced anything like Spirit could give him. When he sat in the chair all alone. And that's what convinced him above logic. Love has no logic. Dear ones, you know, you can't explain it. And we've said it before. It's kind of funny to think about it. Two people, one staring into the eyes of the other, they're both taking a deep breath, and one says finally to the other, I love you. And the other one says, what do you mean by that? Would you explain it? And you don't. You can't. And you wouldn't. You all know that even human love has attributes that are so beautiful. It can cause anxiety at certain levels where you cannot sleep at night. There's too much love. Falling in love is the most beautiful things that humans can do. And you can do it with each other, and you can do it with an animal, and you can do it with God. Falling in love is almost eyeball to eyeball. It's a relationship that you have that you can't explain. You can't explain it. Some people may ask you what happened at this meeting, and you can't explain it. You might say, well, I learned something. And when they say, well, what do you learn? It's tough, isn't it? What if you learned that love is so big that it changes your own heart with you? What if love was so big that it goes beyond anything you can even explain to anybody? But you come out feeling different. What would happen? If all of a sudden you found that you had something that you never thought you had before, that you were loved in a way you never thought you were loved before, you'd take pause, perhaps. You'd think about it, and some would even weep in gratitude. It's not that God loves you. I'll tell you about oneness yet again. If Spirit, God, is the master creator, the master physicist, the master biologist, the one who has orchestrated life on this planet, then that entity, that beautiful consciousness, knows every plant, every weed, every leaf, every grain of sand on the earth. Not just in a linear way, but in a multidimensional way. The creator of it all. And you can't just say, well, I discovered that God loves me. I'll tell you what you discover. In the oneness of everything, you discover that everything loves you. Have you ever met a tree hugger? Oh, I'm sorry, there are some here. And perhaps you were a tree hugger before you ever got interested in anything spiritual. Perhaps you were the ones that said, well, you know, my spirituality is in the forest. That's where it begins. Because you go into the forest and you feel the unconditional love of nature for nature. You realize you're part of the system of nature. And when you walk next to the tree, some of you can feel the consciousness of the age, of the wisdom, of nature itself. And you say, I'm home. This is where I should be. This is where I belong. And this becomes your church. And rightfully so. It is the beginning of the understanding of oneness. If you ask the tree hugger, does the forest love you? And the tree hugger would say, that's why I go there. Yes. I can go there for solace, and I can breathe the air, and I can feel the love of all things. And even if you weren't spiritual, I'll tell you, you felt the love of God. How do you explain to anybody if you suddenly have a realization, an awareness and awakening, that to be loved by the Creator is to be loved by every piece of matter in the universe? There is an experience when you walk into the woods, tree hugger, and you know it, that says not only you are one, but there's caring there. The caring is that you are part of the system. And the forest does not then point at you and say, stay away, you're evil. The forest welcomes you. The trees breathe and they give you oxygen. One of the most amazing experiences to walk into the rainforest. We've said this before, the greatest creation of oxygen comes from that which you call moss. There's more of it growing than there are leaves. And it coats the trees in the rainforest. When you walk in there, you feel so good. You are over-oxygenated. That's what you're feeling. Why would they give you so much oxygen? Dear ones, this is the lifeblood of your system. You oxygenate when you walk into the forest. The trees are greeting you in a certain way that says, you're welcome, you're welcome. And if you could at least begin to transfer that in the civilization that you live in the culture that you live in, even if you're mid-city and you cannot see bushes or trees for a long distance, even if you're feet cannot touch dirt and they're only on cement, I will tell you this, that you can be in the forest. Because the very air that you're breathing came from the trees and the moss who say, I know you, I love you. And you are one with all things. And that is part of the creative source. Can you understand oneness to the degree that to be loved by God is to be loved by every piece of matter anywhere? The Creator's matter knows your name. And this is why we had said so many times to those who look at God dimly through a glass in an older energy and paint a picture of what they understand from only their own experience, God then becomes a parent. And the only examples they've ever had of parenting is their own. And all through history then, God becomes a human parent. It's as good as it gets because they cannot fathom anything more than that. And you see the result of it because God has then become a dysfunctional parent to so many. The God who loves you beyond measure is the God who will then punish you beyond measure. It doesn't make sense. But there's no judgment in this because this came from an older energy. Before the energy started to develop and enhance itself so that you could see a little clearer through that veil. And the first thing you saw through the veil was not punishment or anger, but light. There are criticisms of those who believe what they believe in this very room listening to this channel. And when they say you have no substance, you have no prophet, and you have no doctrine. So you just float around in la-la love land. God bless the floater. Because that floater has not just a tree hugger, he's a God hugger. One who understands that a prophet is not really necessary if you can emulate the Creator itself. And so you don't walk around like little gods. You create a oneness of the one God and you participate in the beauty of it. And in the participation of the beauty of it, there then comes wisdom. And the wisdom starts to grow. The man in the chair 30 years ago had no idea about today. And in that growth that he had to learn to get out of the way of himself. He had to learn the difference between channeling information and ego. He had to make up his mind how he had to survive in the channeling experience. And it's different, dear ones, than if you were to survive in a channeling experience. He had love pouring into him, so strong that he couldn't talk. He couldn't think. And so he started writing it down instead because it was safer. He was afraid of what people would think. He made finally the books he had, and he made his name small enough that no one could see it, and he put it on the back. That was fear. It took him years to go beyond that. The human has to get out of the way and practice getting out of the way, and it takes practice over time. But I'll tell you what happens. The body starts to understand what you're doing. Dear ones, as you sit in front of me, are you aware that if you start the progress and the process of progress, of enlightenment, the body knows what you're doing? Every cell was made by the Creator. The patterning of the Creator is in you. Your innate knows who God is and your higher self is, all the things that you claim are higher within you are part of that creative source that you're trying to get to and understand better. And when you start the process, the body understands. And it starts to then give you an allowance for understanding. That's what happened to the man in the chair 30 years ago. That over time, he began to recognize the difference between himself and his consciousness and the pure consciousness that comes from the other side of the veil. And whereas in the beginning he was confused and had no idea, and his channeling was cryptic, didn't flow with long spaces, when he tried to channel in front of others, he sweat. So nervous, so anxious, working so hard. And then there was a time when it got easier and it got better for him. And then there was the time when he could finally relax and understand the difference. And then, a little over a decade ago, when I said to him in the shower, "Are you ready to go to the next level?" I could see his mind working and the great disappointment that he had when I asked him that, because he thought he was at the highest level. At some level, in linearity, in an older energy, perhaps. But I told him the next level is a meld. A meld so that when you walk around every single day, you're in channel. And the channel that you're in is not the kind in the chair you listen to now. It's the one that has one foot on the other side of the veil and one in this one. The one that walks around and sees humans differently. A meld where you don't have to really try as hard. Where your ego does not get in the way. It sits in the back seat and irritates you. But it never gets to drive the car. That's the meld that is coming to you. You ask linear questions, you always do. How can I do this? How can I do this? What do I do about the duality? What do I do about this and that? Never understanding that you're working too hard. You don't have to do much at all except to accept this wonderful meld that's coming your way through an evolved consciousness and through your innate that says, how would you like to walk all the time in a form of channel? And that form would be your higher self comes in and stays in. You know what meditation is? It's an effort to touch that part of yourself. And in that part, you age less because you breathe correctly and all of that. And the longer you can stay in meditation, you know that, the better things are. And that, dear ones, is accurate and true in an older energy. Today, I will tell you the truth. That meditation is the attempt to get to that meld that my partner is in right now and stay there. You can do this by yourself without the effort of the meditation, and it's always there. You wake up with it, you go to sleep with it, because it becomes you, a constant state of awareness of what is around you and touching the other side of the veil. We have admonished those who call themselves New Age to stop chasing people away, to stop being strange and weird. And there's a reason why some of you do that. And that is so you be left alone. in your own way, to worship in your own way, to be your own spiritual person and not have those bother you. And now we have told you so many times, you accept this meld. You won't be weird. You'll walk around and you will look not only normal, but beyond normal. You'll have a love quotient, which is more than most have. And you'll be seen as loving and wise and safe to most people. The attributes of the masters who walked this planet is they were safe. People could approach them. They wanted to be with them. There was no competition of conversation. The masters of this earth had something in common, all of them. They listened. And when they listened, those who would talk to them knew they were getting through, and they were being loved every moment that they were being heard. This is the new human. The tree hugger doesn't have that not that much wrong with that, you know. That's almost all the way there. Without any spirituality, the tree hugger has it all. Now you add to that the knowledge of the spiritual soul that is involved, that you are. And now you know why the forest greets you. Did you know that Gaia was created for you? There are those who believe that humans are the worst things that ever happened to Gaia. You'll get over that, and you will learn the partnership as you stop polluting. But a truth that you should know is this, is Gaia was created for you. That's your best friend, this planet, and all that it represents. And it's so close to the higher self that you want to touch. I close this message again with the knowledge that I'd like to give you and the wisdom I would like to give you. It says this: you are part of the system of beauty on this earth. You never ever came to suffer. An old energy system will tell you that because that's all they knew. Be the ones to start something new. And that new something is self-sufficient God within, oneness with all things that brings you to wisdom and a place of balance where anxiety and worry for you personally has got to get into the back seat. Because what you emanate in a meld with spirit is beautiful and light-based. And that will be your normal. The pendulum is swinging from dark to light on this planet and illuminating so many things that are inappropriate. Let this be the same with you. And in that, you will see the inappropriate things in your own life, and you can drop them like a hot potato. You can go the other direction because you will be supported in that decision, and every cell of your body will know it. The trees will know it. The air you breathe will know it. Creation will know it. Let it be so. Leave differently than you came. And so it is.